Hi, I'm Jenna Busonko, and this is QTV News coming to you live from our studios along Caraba Avenue. Thanks for joining us. Here are the main local, international, and sports news headlines. In the latest high-profile crime incident, a businessman and his family are terrorized at home at gunpoint and robbed of significant amount of cash and valuables. As the TRRC resumes, two legal practitioners victimized during the JAMA era appear to relate their ordeal. Over 100 Nigerian military personnel are in Gambia on a brief study tour. In international news, Israel's Prime Minister signals that his country has no intention of de-escalating the latest violence in Gaza Strip, which has left hundreds dead and thousands injured, the majority of whom are Palestinians. In sports news, we hear how athletes are coping after a year without competition while hoping to make it to the Olympic Games in Tokyo. Those were the main headlines, and now the news in detail. Do stay with us. For joining us. In the early hours of Sunday morning, a gang of armed robbers ransacked the house and shop of a businessman and went away with a significant amount of money and valuables. The robbery at gunpoint left the businessman and his daughter terrified after they were forced into giving the robbers access to valuables and a safe. Mamadou Lamin Choi has the rest of that.
This is the house and shop of a Lebanese businessman at Old Joswang, where the terrifying incident occurred in the early hours of Sunday around 2 a.m. Walid Burgi, the victim of the robbery incident, who together with his daughter was held at gunpoint, spoke to QTV. In an atmosphere of terror, both could not resist as they watched while the armed robbers broke and entered their house and eventually ended up at the shop where a safe was left empty after the robbers had taken all that was in it.
So I had a gunshot. I opened the door of the toilet. The guy was just in front of my face, and he pointed the gun at me. So I pushed back the door and I locked the door, and they break the toilet door and they entered and they started hitting me, kicking me, even you can see.
An attempt to prevent the robbery from succeeding failed after being unable to reach his son, who was away and unreachable on the phone. In a terrifying encounter, the armed robbers succeeded in entering the house through the window and greeted the victims with a gunshot. The victim allegedly suffered several kickings and beatings. Among the first point of call was his bedroom, where the armed robbers found an empty safe.
They took the safe and then they kept on hitting me that I should remove the money. They removed everything in the cupboards. In my daughter's cupboards, they took all their gold, all their money, and they took us outside to the sitting room and they started hitting me, and they said, "Where's the other money? Your life or the money, which is more important? If you don't remove the money, we will kill you." I said, "Then kill me, I have no money."
And next was to the wholesale shop downstairs, where the victims' attempts could not prevent the second act of robbery, where other members of the gang of robbers, numbering more than a dozen, according to the victims.
They took us back inside because they told me, "Stop screaming. If you scream, all our boys are downstairs. We have covered the whole area." So my daughter got scared and took the keys and led them to the shop. She went down and saw another group of about, like maybe the same 7, 8, God knows. They entered into the shop. They opened the safe, they emptied the safe.
Such a criminal act is not uncommon in the wake of recent reports of theft, burglary, and murder incidents in the country. This has left the businessman with a feeling of fear for the safety of businesses and the public.
Money is not important, but what is important, what is happening in this country. And as good citizens, we have to try to help the future of our kids, because what is happening right now, it's not acceptable.
The robbery victim did not want to disclose the amount of cash that has been taken away. He confirmed that much of the money was hard currency and that it could worth less or more than $15 million, which was the amount mentioned in social media reports of the incident. The question one might ask is why he kept such a significant amount in the shop.
On our daily sales is taking to the bank on daily basis. We don't keep dollars. It happened that it was the weekend. It happens that it was pre-days. It happened that there were days that there were no work. That's why.
Among the valuables taken by the armed robbers are jewelry, a Rolex watch, and 5 mobile phones, one of which has been recovered from someone who, according to the victim, claimed to have picked it up from a dustbin. A highly significant aspect of the robbery is that the robbers moved the CCTV camera angle and absconded with its recorder. While the matter has been reported to the police, the victim is appealing for the public to report any suspicions about the matter and promises a handsome reward to anyone who traces the criminals. Mahmoud Lamin Choi, QTV News.
Unfortunate situation there. Now, 2 legal practitioners victimized during Jammeh's time for presiding over judgments that didn't favor Yahya Jammeh on Monday appeared before the Truth Commission investigation interference with the judiciary. Babukar C has the rest of that.
Principal Magistrate Honorable Omar Jabang and High Court Judge Justice Ibrahim Jaite appeared before the Truth Commission and presented a paper called the Systematic Human Rights Violations under the Second Republic, which did not spare legal practitioners.
Judges and magistrates were frequently and unconstitutionally removed from office without adherence to constitutional procedure. Executive branch of government being dissatisfied with judicial pronouncements being made in court often resulted in filing bogus and frivolous charges against judges and magistrates in order to humiliate, intimidate, persecute them for their decisions.
The witness went further to narrate the powers given to the judiciary and the separation of powers as clearly stated by the 1997 Constitution, which were pushed aside by the executive, who hired and fired at will without following due process. Justice Jaite also narrated his ordeal in 2012 when he was serving as a first-class magistrate in Brikama. The witness recalled a case brought before him involving Sheikh Muhyiddin Haidara and Buya Toure, who were arrested after being accused of performing Eid prayers on a different date against Jammeh's order.
I came in, it was 10 months, there was a backlog of cases. My job literally at that time was to deliver judgments. The state never appealed against these decisions. Whether they were aggrieved or they were not aggrieved, I didn't know, but I think they were very unhappy with my decisions. Executive,
banku la bunda,
particularly Yahya Jammeh himself,
Yahya Jammeh fango
was not happy with my decision. He was aggrieved with it. He gave an executive order for my arrest and detention. Friday night.
Despite trying to explain to the security that he is immune from arrest and the authorities have the right to appeal the court's decision, he was detained during the weekend, and on a Monday, the former police chief Yankuba Sonko informed him that the police had nothing to do with his arrest and that the order came from the then President Yahya Jammeh. Days later, the witness received a letter terminating his service and granting him bail on $500,000 and asked to report to the police daily. After Jaite's ordeal, Honorable Omar Jabang also told the commission that he presided and judged over cases that did not favor Yahya Jammeh, resulting in his arrest and illegal detention.
The information they got from former President Jammeh was that I was a very controversial magistrate.
Who arrested you?
Serious crime unit.
Because serious crime unit, police bunda.
Under the IGP. And he, the IGP, didn't know whether you could be granted bail.
Exactly.
What did that tell you?
I knew maybe it's something that is above him.
Honorable Jabang was later dismissed from his work by the Judicial Secretary. However, former President Jammeh revoked the decision days later and reinstated him. The duo ended their testimony by applauding the leadership of President Adama Barrow and his government for not interfering in the work of the judiciary, and that the foreign judges in the country are here offering technical assistance, unlike in Jammeh's days when they were here to do the president's bidding. Babukar C, QTV News.
A delegation comprising 61 military officers of the Senior Course 43 from the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, Jaji, Nigeria, are in the country for a study tour. As Aliu Sise reports, the delegation was hosted to a welcome ceremony attended by the Deputy Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Mahmoud Ocham.
The visit, scheduled to last until 21st of May 2021, is on the theme National Efforts Towards Regional Security, COVID-19 in Perspective. The Armed Forces Command and Staff College, Jaji, Nigeria, is one of the apex military training institutions for the Nigerian Armed Forces. Its primary mission is to impart knowledge and develop expertise and skills of selected senior military officers. The study tour to the Gambia is a major exercise in the curriculum of the senior staff course of the college to conduct research on issues of socio-economical, cultural, and political importance. The visit will offer the visitors the opportunity to determine the issues relating to the COVID-19 pandemic in the Gambia with special attention on security and enable them to prepare a report to be shared with the college community in June. Several lectures on the theme have been organized for the visiting officers to be delivered by officials of the Ministry of Health, Interior, University of the Gambia, and National Assembly. In receiving the visitors, Major General Mahmoud Ocham, Deputy Chief of Defense Staff of the Gambia Armed Forces, welcomed the officers and thanked them for choosing to visit the Gambia on this study tour. Deputy CDS Cham applauded the strong bilateral military ties between the Gambia and Nigeria, and by extension, Nigeria's contribution to sub-regional peace. He shared with the visiting officers the steps taken by the military command to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic without compromising peace and security.
In order to mitigate the risk of transmission among our personnel, the GAF High Command had to scale down its administrative, operational, and training activities at the respective services, formations, and units headquarters. Also, the Directorate of Medical Services was tasked to embark on a vigorous sensitization of troops under command, and these had greatly reduced the risk of transmission within GAF military installations. I must state at this juncture that we thank God that throughout the pandemic, GAF had not lost any soldier to COVID-19.
Air Commodore Chidi Obiabaka, Director, Department of Warfare, Armed Forces Command and Staff College, Jaji, Nigeria, who also doubles as head of delegation, said his team, also known as Team the Gambia, is one of the 5 teams from the college currently touring selected African countries in line with the African Study Tour program of the college.
The college does not train only Nigerian military officers, but also trains selected and qualified officers for Nigeria paramilitary services, as well as ministries, departments, and agencies. In pursuance of Nigeria's broad African-centered foreign policy, the college also trains officers from allied and sister African countries. Further to this, the college and other military staff colleges of Ghana and South Africa operate military exchange programs that provide for the participation of their respective officers as directing staff across board.
Major Christopher Samuel Buba, on behalf of colleagues, expressed delight at the warm reception accorded them since their arrival, indicating a beginning to a successful academic visit. As part of the visit, the delegation will pay a courtesy call on the Chief of Defense Staff of the Gambia Armed Forces and the Minister of Defense. Reporting for QTV News, I am Aliu Sise.
From that story by Aliu Sise, we will now take a short commercial break. Still to come, we have local, international, and sports news. Do stay tuned.
Your favorite mobile service has done it again. Now, you can buy cash power with your QMoney account, free of charge. Yes, you heard me right. For free! Nothing is cheaper than free. So start buying your cash power from the comfort of your homes with unbeatable services QMoney has to offer. With QMoney, life is easy. Visit your nearest QMoney agent to cash in or call customer care on 133 for more information. Don't forget to wash your hands with soap after handling cash. Stay home, stay clean, stay safe. QMoney. Sunyu Kalpe. We innovate, others follow.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. If you're just tuning in, this is QTV News and I am Jennifer Sonko. Now, the Gambia Prison Service, in partnership with Justice Defenders, the Ministry of Justice and the UK government, on Monday held the official launch of a 3-week training course on access to justice for 20 participants, including inmates and prison officers. And Sumana Isonyasi has the rest of that.
Described as a landmark event in the annals of the country's justice delivery system, Monday's event ushers in the commencement of a 3-week training program for 12 prison officers and 8 inmates on access to justice and other legal instruments. Spearheaded by Justice Defenders and facilitated by various stakeholders, including the Ministry of Justice, the program is the first of its kind in the country. In his opening address, Ansumana Mane, the Director General of the Gambia Prison Service, underscored the importance of such capacity-building programs in complementing national efforts to strengthen fundamental human rights and making access to justice a reality for all. And he also offered his administration's unwavering support to ensuring the successful implementation of the program.
We are delighted to have you gathered here today to recognize this groundbreaking moment in the history of our country's justice system. It is impressive to acknowledge the huge wealth of resources, time, and expertise that institutions and leaders like you are willing to offer for the benefit of people whose societies have written off and oftentimes forgotten.
David Belgrove, British High Commissioner to the Gambia, and Justice Robin Knowles, a judge at the High Court of England, who delivered his statement via Zoom, both commended Justice Defenders for leading a process they say will change many lives, and went on to highlight the importance the UK government attaches to the program.
The UK has been really pleased to support the rule of law institutions within the Gambia. For the UK government, the rule of law also refers to the ends that a society values and that are generally agreed to be desirable in a fair, open and democratic society.
This initiative is beyond question strategic and sustainable. That combination, together with the sense of partnership, is formidable. And the initiative, as a result, deserves to succeed, and it could not be more important.
Meanwhile, Alexander McLean, founder of Justice Defenders, expressed his delight at the commencement of this training program that will avail both inmates and prison officers first-hand experience and legal knowledge, especially in dealing with inmates facing trial and appeal cases.
This is a momentous moment for Justice Defenders because we're beginning work in the Gambia hand in hand with all of the key partners across the justice system. We're excited to learn together, to work together, to serve together.
On behalf of the Chief Justice and Attorney General, Chief Magistrate Omar Cham and Aji Adam Sise both gave assurances of the entire justice system support to the project and enjoined participants to make best use of this rare opportunity. On behalf of the participants, Luke Jata, a prison officer, and Tarek Bright, an inmate, both commended Justice Defenders for availing them with such an opportunity. Other speakers at Monday's event included Akena Samuel, Director of Operational Services, Uganda Prison Service, Caroline Luen of Louisiana Prison in Uganda, Francis Nyao, an inmate at Kenya Central Prison, who all benefited from similar programs, amongst many others who all expressed optimism that the program will impact greatly on the country's justice delivery system. Answane Sonyasi for QTV News.
Brilliant initiative there. Now, life without adequate water supply is becoming unbearable in Pasimutu village in Opa Badibu for over a decade. The only well in the village that serves both inhabitants, including animals, is insufficient. QTV's North Bank reporter Malik Nyang visited the village and he files this report.
Residents of Pasimutu complain that the scarcity of water has affected their daily activities for over 10 years. The 34 households in this village say they lack an important necessity vital for life. The village Alcalo Aliou Cissé commented after giving a brief history of the village.
Everyone is complaining about the lack of water. I am thirsty, but I cannot drink. We have 2 wells, but one has run dry.
Aliou Touré, one of the village youth leaders, tells us more about the water scarcity.
Our main problem is lack of water. The women go through a lot of trouble by waking up early in the morning to find water. They are exhausted by the time they come home.
Mr. Ture stated that the well does not provide water throughout the day, and it starts to change color as people draw more water when the demand is more than the supply. Thus, they will have to restrict people from fetching water for some hours so that the well will refill with clean water. Batur Sise, a resident, was another to give her views.
We are really suffering here. We wake up at 4 a.m. up to 10 a.m. without getting water. Our children are having chest problems by pulling 20-liter gallons from the well. The most affected are the pregnant women.
Horaja Nyang, women rep, calls for help to remedy the situation.
One day, we also want to get water from taps because we are tired using wells. Look at this water. We cannot have clean water in the mornings and afternoons. This water is causing all types of sickness.
The village elder Asan Sise says scarcity of water in this village dates back to the late President Jawara era. He added that during former President Jammeh's time, a well was dug, but the project didn't continue because they were labeled as non-Jammeh supporters. Thus, the project was terminated. The villagers here are now desperate for clean water and are calling for help. Malik Nyang for QTV News.
They definitely deserve some support. Now we will take another short commercial break. Still to come, we have international and sports news. Do stay tuned.
With QCell's eFund service, you never have to worry about running out of credit, whether you're completely out of cash or far from a credit vendor. QCell's eFund is your way out. Loan any amount between $10 and $100 now and pay later. Dial *393# to get started. As part of our efforts to always be your trusted network, we encourage you to use *393# for all your eFund requests and say goodbye to the old *118#. Do note the *118# will no longer be functional after November 15, 2020. So remember, it's *393# whenever you want to access the eFund service. Call 111 for more information. QCell, Sunyabus, terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. If you're just tuning in, this is QTV News and I am Jera Bosonko. Now let's take a look at stories beyond our borders. On Monday, Israel warplanes launched the heaviest airstrikes yet on Gaza City, according to reports. This is the 8th day of hostilities between Israel and Palestinian Hamas militants. And according to the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, the situation appears to be heading for an uncontainable security and humanitarian crisis. Here is a special report by Mahmoud Mbouch.
24 hours earlier, on Sunday, Israeli air raids left 42 Palestinians dead in the deadliest single attack in the latest cycle of violence between Israel and the Hamas militant group that rules Gaza. Shortly before dawn on Monday, the Israeli military said more than 50 warplanes conducted a 20-minute attack on the Gaza Strip. They struck facilities belonging to Hamas and several commanders' homes, but main roads and power lines were also damaged, they claimed. This attack has been described as the heaviest in a week of relentless Israeli bombardment of the Gaza Strip, which counts among its destruction the Gaza Tower, a building that housed international media offices, including Al Jazeera's and the Associated Presses. Palestinian officials in Gaza said the strikes had caused widespread power cuts and damaged hundreds of homes and other buildings. According to the Hamas-controlled health ministry, the overall death toll in Gaza now stands at 197 people, including 58 children and 34 women, with 1,235 injured. One resident of Gaza has been reported saying, and I quote, "Day after day we watch the bombs fall on homes where our friends and family live and buildings where our colleagues work, wondering if we will be next." And day after day, we wait in vain for the unequivocal condemnation from the international community that never comes. In a news conference on Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu warned that, and I quote, "We are acting now for as long as necessary to restore calm. It will take time. Israel wants to levy a heavy price on the Hamas military group," he added. The current round of violence was sparked on the first night of Ramadan, when Israeli authorities harassed Palestinian worshippers and attacked them amid prayers inside Al-Aqsa Mosque. Additionally, the Israelis had also threatened to vacate dozens of Palestinian families from their homes in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood of occupied East Jerusalem. Tension spread from East Jerusalem to Gaza after Palestinian resistance groups in Gaza vowed to retaliate for Israeli assaults on Al-Aqsa and the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood. Hamas began firing rockets towards Jerusalem, triggering retaliatory Israeli assault on Gaza. According to Israeli sources, 10 people in Israel have been killed in some of the 3,100 rocket attacks launched from Gaza. International calls for a ceasefire continue to mount. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said on Monday that his country was going to great lengths to reach a ceasefire, and hope still exists. The EU, US, AU have all expressed their concerns. The 15-member UN Security Council, however, has been unable to agree on a public statement that condemned Israel's military response and called for a ceasefire. The United States, a strong ally of Israel, reportedly blocked the statement. Some reports suggest Hamas has been offering some kind of ceasefire for several days, only to be rebuffed by Israel, which clearly wants to inflict as much damage as it can on the militants before the fighting is finally brought to a close. Hostilities have periodically broken out between the two antagonists since the creation of the State of Israel in Palestine in 1948. As recently as 2014, conflict between the two raged on for 50 days between July and August, costing on the Palestinian side more than 2,000 lives, many of whom were civilians. On the Israeli side, 67 soldiers were killed, along with 6 civilians. According to analysts, these episodes of violence follow a familiar pattern. Israel presses home its undoubted military advantage until the international outcry over civilian casualties and a deteriorating humanitarian situation in Gaza demand that the operation end. In Israel's estimation, we have not reached that point yet. For QTV News, I am Mamadou Mbouch.
From that story by Mamadou Mbouch, now let's take a look at what's happening in the world of sports. Birkama Athletes Club held its first preseason athletes competition in over a year. Athletes from various clubs took part in the one-day event on Saturday at the Kinderdorf Bottrop School Field. The competition is organized in memory of the late Abdoulaye Bambanjai, former coach of the Gambia national athletics team. Our reporter Momodo Gajaga reports.
Racing on a dusty and sandy school ground used as a makeshift athletics track. Despite the poor conditions, these athletes are excited to have a competition where they could hone their skills, a year on since they last competed in such an event. Jalika Bajinka finished first in her event.
I have been training since last year. There is no competition, so this competition is very important to me. I would like to thank my coach, Kemo SM Koli. He's the one who is encouraging me every day.
Etienne Obega, winner of the 5,000 meters, expresses his excitement at having participated in this race. He also says the competition is a warm-up for him after more than a year without any sort of competition due to the coronavirus pandemic.
This event, this is the first race of the season, but I'm very glad that I've came out first. It has been a very long season. Since last year, there isn't any competition due to this pandemic, but I'm grateful that I've been keeping the momentum and I've come out first. So looking forward to work harder.
Apart from just individual warm-up sessions and trainings, no form of athletics competition, especially at schools level, were held after the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education suspended school athletics indefinitely earlier this year, citing health expert advice over the coronavirus. Kemo Koli, organizer of the event, says he sees the need for athletes to have a competition.
Athletes are training for almost 2 years, no competition.
And we are seeing the second best African champion, African best 100-meter runner, second in my team. She is sitting down for almost 2 years, no competition. What can we do now? The only thing I can do is just to motivate and organize a simple competition and invite the clubs to come and support. For me to fund this competition, it is very hard for me.
President of the Gambia Athletics Association, Dudu Kapi-Juve, was in attendance. He praised the organizers for putting together this competition.
Birkama is one of the regions that are really doing well to develop athletics, especially when they name the competition to a person who dedicated his life, his time to the development of athletics, Alaji Abdullah Bambanjai, who was the head coach of the Gambia Athletic Association and passed away 3 years ago.
Gambian athletes train on substandard facilities and get paid very low wages, if at all. Yet the country produces some good athletes. Guinea-Bass came through the same system, winning the 200 meters gold at the Africa Games in 2019, thereby securing an automatic qualification spot at the Tokyo Olympic Games. Several Gambian athletes training at the High Performance Center in Dakar, Senegal, will take part in a competition in France next week to book qualifying spots at the Tokyo Games. Mamudu Gajaga, QTV News.
Seems that is all we have for you in this edition of QTV News, but before we take a leave, let's take a quick look at our main stories. Latest high-profile crime incident, a businessman and his family are terrorized at home at gunpoint and robbed of significant amounts of cash and valuables. As the TRRC resumes, 2 legal practitioners victimized during the Jammeh era appear to relay their ordeal. Over 100 Nigerian military personnel are in Gambia on a brief study tour. In international news, Israel's Prime Minister signals that his country has no intention of de-escalating the latest violence in Gaza Strip, which has left hundreds dead and thousands injured, the majority of whom are Palestinians. In sports news, we heard how athletes are coping after a year without competition while hoping to make it to the Olympic Games in Tokyo. Well, that is all we have for you in this edition of QTV News. Do join us tomorrow, same time for more news. Thanks for watching and do join us at 10 for another bulletin.